Good Monday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope you're having a good afternoon, a better one than the Browns had yesterday. Disappointing opener. Lost to the Cowboys, pretty much completely dominated. Dan Orlovsky on the Browns and Deshaun Watson after that opening season loss. This from ESPN's Get Up Today.
I think there's a crisis in Cleveland after 1 week, okay? Kevin Stefanski's offense, scheme-wise, comes from Kyle Shanahan and Gary Kubiak, which is the under-center, play-action pass game, the outside zone. That's how they create their explosive plays. They can't run it and won't run it with Deshaun Watson. And I don't know the exact reason why, but if you watch the game, it's shotgun, it's catch and throw. And the problem is Deshaun, for some reason, is hesitant, got in the football, and just egregious misses. He's going to climb the pocket. Amari Cooper's in the middle of the field there. It's 3rd and 10. It's two-man. Throw the ball. He's open. You have to make that throw. You are talented enough to make that throw. He's got Elijah Moore on an in route right here. He's going to be wide open in the middle of the field. The pocket is plenty clean. To me, this looks like a guy guiding the football, trying to run the completion to him rather than just cutting it loose. He's going to have a slant. Cowboys are going to blitz off that slot. Puts it on Amari Cooper. It's a catch and run, and it might be 15, 20 yards. He misses that by a yard behind him. This one, back's going to go to the flat, to the bottom of the screen. He's wide open. For some reason, Deshaun's working up top, one-on-one. It's a long foul ball, 6 or 7 yards out of bounds. That happened like 3 times yesterday when the ball's 6 or 7 yards away from the receiver. So I think there's a crisis because it tells me Cleveland knows it can't run the scheme that it truly in its heart wants to. And even when they do it, they can't execute it.
Now let's welcome in Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram as well as brownzone.com. Scott, I don't think running the play-action pass where he turns his back to the defense is the strength. And I think that's what Dan Orlovsky is saying. And I think he answered his own question. That's why they're not running it. He doesn't do it well.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what Kevin Stefanski has decided. Deshaun Watson had 6 starts in each of the last 2 years. The Browns ran, especially in 2022, ran a good amount of the play-action pass game. That's what Stefanski runs, and he has run throughout his career. They started to change that last year. They really went all in on a change this year with the overhauling of the offensive coaching staff, including bringing in coordinator Ken Dorsey. It's different. It's about 3 wides. It's about shotgun. It's about RPOs. All of it. The coaching changes, some of the personnel moves, the playbook changes are all to maximize Deshaun Watson's skill set. So when Orlovsky asked that question, I get it, and it's because Stefanski does have an offense he prefers, and we saw it at the end of last year with Joe Flacco, but that's not how the Browns think Deshaun Watson can succeed. So you change it up. And the problem is, if Deshaun Watson doesn't wind up succeeding in this system either, then there's nowhere to go.
It was ugly. I know you wrote an article on it. Did you see anything that I didn't see that they just, I mean, it couldn't have been much worse offensively.
No, it could not have been. I mean, they didn't commit to the run, which I don't know if they want to do. We're going to need a larger sample size to determine if this new scheme, new philosophy, if they want to run it enough. But they didn't have the opportunity. They fell behind early. They were in 1st and 15 and 2nd and 10, seemingly all day, which makes it pretty impossible to run the ball. When they tried to throw it, they couldn't protect Deshaun Watson. He held on to the ball too long. He struggled to make quick decisions. He was able to escape some sacks and, run around for a while and then still wind up getting hit or with throwing incompletion. It just wasn't good. The protection was good. He held on the ball too long, all of it. And that's how, you have such a, to me, shocking and also an embarrassing opening loss. But no, there were not, offensively, I don't know if I have one positive.
Yeah, I can't argue. I couldn't come up with one. That's why I was asking. Kevin Stefanski talked today to the media, was asked about Deshaun Watson's inability to get a rhythm going.
Offensively, it's never a one-man show. To get in rhythm with the quarterback, you have to get in rhythm as an offense, and we didn't do that well enough, whether it was and it's multifaceted, and it includes me and it includes our coaches. So we'll be better. We'll make sure that we have an offense where we can move the ball, score some points, but definitely not a one-man show.
He did miss some throws that we normally see him complete, though, Kevin. From a coaching standpoint, what are kind of the points of emphasis coming off what you saw in film?
Yeah, there's plenty to correct, Tom. Specifically to the quarterback. There's going to be games and there's going to be throws that you miss, but it's making those plays that are there when they present themselves, and then we just have to do a better job protecting him. Number one, like I mentioned to you guys last night, we can't allow our quarterback to get hit that many times.
Scott, that was perhaps one of the most disappointing things is that they didn't have they trotted James Hudson out there, and I told you, I said, the only thing I saw James Hudson do was pick Deshaun Watson up after he got knocked on the ground about 10 or 12 times.
Yeah, he struggled, but it wasn't all James Hudson.
No.
DeJuan Jones had 2 false starts. I thought he gave up pressures. And I don't think it's all like man on man, and that happens sometimes. Micah Parsons got by Joe Bitonio on one. He got by Wyatt Teller on at least one. But plenty of it was the schemes, and it was twists and stunts that the Cowboys did with their rushes and their blitz packages that I thought confused the Browns. And they would both, the guard and the tackle would block the defensive tackle looping around, and then the end would come inside and have a clean shot. The Cowboys would bring 6 guys, the Browns would have 5, and Watson couldn't get rid of the ball fast enough, whether it was his fault or the receivers weren't making the proper adjustment with their hot routes. Whatever it was, they just didn't have the right answers from a protection standpoint. And part of that's coaching, part of that's quarterback, part of that's line, part of that's the guys running routes for him. So it was all of it. And I think what's, if you're a Browns fan, if you're the Browns, disappointing is 4 of those 5 starters on the offensive line are coming back. You trust those guys, and it's not all about the left tackle. I think that will help if and when they get Conklin or Jed Wills at left tackle. I think that will settle things down. But they have other issues that they need to fix.
Yeah, and again, I didn't mean for it to be all James Hudson. They didn't scheme around they didn't call around what their deficiencies were. And maybe it's because they ended up 1st and 15 a good portion of the first half.
Yeah, I do think they tried to chip and they tried to give. It's not like they left Micah Parsons one-on-one a whole bunch, but that didn't work either. And there was one example, and I was rewatching the first half today, where Pierre Strong chips Parsons, but it's barely a chip. It doesn't even slow him down much. And he winds up going then one-on-one with, I think it was for the couple of snaps Jermaine Ifedi was in, and he gets by Ifedi. And I don't think it was a sack, but he hits Watson. So even when the coaches had a plan, and I think they did devote a bunch of resources to trying to protect Watson, that didn't work either.
All right, so you tweeted this out. Found out some guys banged up. Maurice Hurst, an ankle injury. David Njoku, ankle. Mahmoud Diabate and Fields all week to week. When you look at those, the one that really jumps out is David Njoku. And watching him go off the field, it would take a lot for him to be ready, I'm guessing, for Sunday.
Yeah, Stefanski wouldn't go as far as to say it is a high ankle sprain, but, it's week to week. I've been told he could miss weeks. And not that any team in the league has 2 Pro Bowl tight ends on their roster, but there's a big drop-off from Njoku to Jordan Akins, who's, a serviceable journeyman 2 or 3 in this league. And then the Browns don't have another tight end. They have 2 second-year guys that don't have a catch between them on the practice squad. And that's it. And part of it is because they have gone to more 3 wides, more 4 wides, more spread. So you don't need the volume of tight ends. And they trust Njoku, and Njoku, for the most part, has been available and hasn't been hurt much. But all offseason we talked about it. I didn't think they were deep enough at tight end. And I still don't. And now it's really showing up, because if Njoku doesn't play this week or for however many weeks, It's going to be Jordan Akins in a pivotal role, and then they have to figure it out after that. And we know Njoku's the second option in the passing game, and for passing him that was terrible against the Cowboys, you can't afford to lose that guy. So they don't have a choice probably, and they're going to have to do it. And they overcame a bunch of injuries last year, but this is a significant one if Njoku misses any time at all.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Great show. Howard from Marin County. I'm kind of speechless after what I saw today. I lay the blame on the brain trust. They should have certainly fortified the tackle position and also got an extra tight end. My question to you is, how many games will Deshaun Watson play before they will have to replace him? Granted, today he was running for his life, but he had so many overthrows and he was pretty awful. So that's my question to you. If he continues to play like this, when will they put DTR in or Jameis Winston? Thanks.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, I can't imagine it would be DTR. It would be Jameis Winston, and it would it's probably the entire season. I can't imagine them pulling the plug on Deshaun Watson, because you're gonna, if you do that, you're gonna eat a bunch. And again, it's one game, but it is a concern. That game is a big concern.
Well, yeah, we don't know if Watson's going to figure it out. We don't know. I think I can assume that he's not going to get back to the guy he was in Houston. Now, is there someplace in between that, against the performance against the Cowboys and what he did as a 3-time Pro Bowler with the Texans, that is good enough? At least it wins games. It gives you a chance. You get to the playoffs, maybe win a playoff game, get lucky, go on a run, whatever. I think there is. I think it's okay to hope for that if you're the Browns and think that that's possible. He had some good games last year. He had some good moments. The second half in Baltimore, we talk about the Tennessee game, the Arizona game. So he's played better, obviously, than he did yesterday in Cleveland. And, I know Orlovsky, I think, tweeted about, Winston. I just can't see a scenario where they bench Deshaun Watson for performance. His cap number the next 2 years, 25 and 26, is $73 million. And maybe it gets to the point where they have to do that, but they're gonna have to be forced to do that, to give up on Deshaun Watson, whether it's this season or just period give up on him. They're not gonna make that decision lightly. So he's gonna have plenty of time, in my expectation, to try to figure this out. And they're gonna try to support him every way possible, just like they have. They try to put him in the best situations to succeed. And that makes it hard on a coach. It makes it hard on the people around him when your quarterback's not uplifting everybody and needs to be uplifted. But that's the position they're in. And, like you said, I don't want to read too much into one game. But, there have been questions about Watson since he got him. So it's not like these come out of thin air. And, if you were worried about him to begin with, then that performance against the Cowboys just confirmed every worry you had.
Scott Patrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak from the Illyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Please stop dissing Baker Mayfield. You're always propping up Stefanski and you're dissing Baker Mayfield. The man who brought the Browns back to respectability from irrelevance. Baker's had more success, including breaking the rookie record for touchdown passes without Stefanski than he had with Stefanski. Case closed. Speaking of the coach, I know you think Stefanski has the potential to be the next Belichick, but I think one day you will realize that Stefanski is, at best, the Baker Mayfield of head coaches. And when you realize that, maybe you won't look down on Baker so much.
Give me a break. Baker Mayfield didn't bring the Browns back from anything. Baker Mayfield was a bust as a number 1 overall pick. He's playing okay in Tampa Bay, but you know what? If they would have taken Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, wouldn't be in this problem, wouldn't have made the Deshaun Watson trade. Made the Deshaun Watson trade because Baker Mayfield's a bust. Give me a break. Look at how many teams have given up on him. Scott, I'm just getting sick of this whole Baker Mayfield, Baker this, Baker that. He's an average NFL quarterback. Take Mike Evans out of that lineup, his numbers are going way down.
That's pretty strong, David. Yeah, I'm tired of the comparisons too, and I get them, and I get that Baker Mayfield had a large legion of fans in Cleveland, and they were upset by the trade and upset by bringing Watson in. I get that, but I completely understand why the Browns thought that Mayfield wasn't the right guy to be here. Now, does it look like Deshaun Watson's better, or the answer? No, but I don't think that changes the belief that I agree with, that Baker is not an elite quarterback and he's not a top 10, top 12 guy that you need to consistently contend for the Super Bowl. The Browns are chasing that, and they may have gotten wrong in their chase, but I think the thinking was sound.
Yeah, it certainly looks like they've gotten it wrong, at least from where we sit right now. NFL Week 1 grade, CBS Sports. They give the Browns an F. Yeah, hard to argue. Make or break season for Deshaun Watson, and so far he looks broken. Browns quarterback completed just 53.3% of his passes, throwing 2 interceptions. Didn't help Watson's cause that the Cowboys seemed to be in Cleveland's backfield a good chunk of the game, day where the QB was sacked 6 times. We've delineated it. It wasn't a good game. The offensive line wasn't good. Deshaun Watson wasn't good.
No, I mean, I don't know how you get around giving them an F. They were terrible. The defense, I guess, was okay. Got better after those 2 touchdown drives early. Big miscommunication on the first touchdown. They could have gotten out of that drive if Denzel Ward was able to make an interception. The special teams wasn't good. Gave up a punt return for a touchdown. So, yeah, across the board, it was terrible. No place to go but up.
So this is from the Bleacher Report. NFL teams' needs after Week 1. For the Browns, number 1, a wide receiver. Number 2, a running back. Number 3, a left tackle. Number 4, a linebacker. Number 5, a cornerback. Add now, Kadarius Toney. Toney was released by the Chiefs. Hasn't found a home yet. Browns might just be in a position to take a risk on him. And we also found out the Browns did work him out last week. There's a wide receiver probably wouldn't help, or wouldn't hurt, rather. They need a lot. I'm hoping that it's, I don't want to say it's just one game. It's concerning.
Well, the game's concerning. Outside of quarterback, I don't think I have bigger questions about the roster coming out of yesterday. I think the defense is going to be fine. I think the defense is going to be really good. They need depth at linebacker. If Diabate and Fields miss time, then they need some depth at linebacker. I think tight end should be at the top of that list, given what we talked about with David Njoku. But besides quarterback, there wasn't anything yesterday that said, oh my gosh, they're super deficient in talent somewhere. When we talked about receiver forever, I think they're fine at receiver. I'm not sure Toney makes any difference there. I think the quarterback, if he played better, would help the receivers. You can make an argument that they're not deep enough there, but they're comfortable. I like Amari Cooper. I think Jerry Jeudy's going to be okay. Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman, we'll see. Left tackle, they have 2 coming back, and when they get back, then I think they'll be fine at tackle. So, my concerns aren't really from the roster standpoint. It's quarterback and then fixing what went wrong. And I think that's more about, I don't know if it's game plan or attention to detail, whatever it is. And I don't want to be too coach speaky, but I think from a roster standpoint, they're pretty much okay.
All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Okay, guys, first game of the year. I know what you're going to say. We didn't play anybody in preseason. We didn't practice. Well, that's our 2-time Coach of the Year's problem. I don't know why these guys didn't play. It looks like that's our first game they ever played. Our offense didn't change anything. I didn't see any motion. There was so much motion we were supposed to see from you guys. Well, I didn't see any. It looked like the same offense we ran any other time. Defense has been figured out. Houston crushed us, and this time this team did the same thing. Our defensive player of the year had one play. That's about it. But Parsons was all over the field every game, causing havoc. I think we're in trouble, guys, but who knows? Take care.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, the thing that, among other things, 2 rookies starting on the offensive line, and they weren't able to get as much pressure as I thought they would on Dak Prescott. And you had a guy coming off an ACL and a rookie 5th-round pick, and you weren't able to expose that in the secondary.
Yeah, from the Browns' defensive standpoint, it's hard. And I don't, this is not to make any excuses. When you're down 20-3 or whatever the score was at halftime, it's hard to just rush the quarterback because Dallas could run the ball. Dallas could do whatever it wanted. Dallas was not in many 3rd and 15s, and if they were, they could run a draw because they could punt and they were still winning by a bunch. So that limits your pass rush opportunity. Myles Garrett had a sack and a strip sack. He had another sack taken away because he lined up in the neutral zone. Dalvin Tomlinson had a sack early where he got past that rookie center. So, I think Zadarius Smith had a sack. I didn't think overall there was a huge lack of pressure. I just thought it was circumstance. And on the other side of the ball, yeah, I agree that they should have been able to attack that secondary, and they didn't. And that goes back to Watson. It goes back to protection. It goes back to 3rd and 15. It makes life a lot easier on the defense. So I think it was kind of a perfect storm, and they were responsible for that storm. I'm not saying they weren't, but I think that if it was, let's say they don't give up that first touchdown, whatever, Denzel Ward gets that interception, and then it's closer, then you can run it a little more, and the game doesn't get away from you. It just changes how the game goes, and it reminded me of that playoff game in Houston, and that's not a good thing, obviously. But it felt similar where the defense struggled early, figured things out, but then by then it didn't matter because the offense wasn't going to score. They turned the ball over, and there were huge plays that led to points, whether it's pick sixes or punt returns. So it just kind of felt like that to me.
Scott Patrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Well, hello, guys. I'm not going to say I'm totally disappointed, but I am. Coaching should hold players accountable for their actions and how they prepare for a game. And Tom Brady said it. Players want to be held accountable. Don't think that you can't teach them or yell at them or make them prepared. This team was not prepared to play this game. And don't tell me that it's only the first game and that it was preseason and he didn't want anybody to get hurt. That was a total and utter debacle. Take care, guys. I'm sure I'll talk to you more. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, I think we kind of said the same thing. It was a disappoint. It's as disappointing as I've been for an opening season game in a long time. I expected a lot more.
About 1999, maybe.
Yeah.
Brady was there, and everybody thought they would kill the Titans if they get embarrassed by Mike Vrabel and company. Yeah, you know what? It's certainly hugely disappointing. I call it shocking. I thought they were going to win the game. You can have a legitimate discussion whether the light training camp and guys missing a bunch of practice time for injuries and the biggest name guys, not many of the biggest name guys, not playing in the preseason, if that contributed to this. And you can certainly have that discussion, and there's valid points. Dak Prescott didn't play in the preseason. CeeDee Lamb didn't play in the preseason, and they still went out and played great. I don't think Micah Parsons played in the preseason. So, there's not one right answer to this question, but when your team looks as bad as the Browns did, then everything gets scrutinized, and understandably so. I do think it's important to point out it's not like this is not, I don't think, endemic of Kevin Stefanski. They won the last 2 openers, which the Browns hadn't done in forever.
Yep.
And they were prepared, and they had light training camps before that. So, I don't think you can just say you can kill the coaching for yesterday without a doubt. I don't think that makes Kevin Stefanski any less of a coach.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But again, I just they didn't look prepared. And then the biggest breakdown, that punt return. I mean, that put it away early. It made after the punt return in the third quarter. It was like, oh, great.
And that's supposed to be a strength, and it usually has been. And I like Bubba Ventrone as coordinator, but it was a poor punt, and Corey Bojorquez had a couple poor punts, and then there was just a huge gap. There's probably a missed tackle in there somewhere. And I thought overall on special teams, outside of Dustin Hopkins' field goal, they got outplayed.
All right, winners and losers from Week 1, according to Dog Pound Daily. Winners, they have Jalen Darden and Myles Garrett. They probably had to look pretty hard to find those. Losers, Jerome Ford, Juwan Jones, Deshaun Watson. And again, I think you might have touched on it a little bit. The run game was, I know they fell behind, but I think we're seeing a lot of the same things. There's a lot of indecisiveness from Jerome Ford. Get the ball, get forward. You can't.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting, Dave. I mean, he was 12. I'm looking at the stats. 12 for 44, so 3.7 touchdown, 11 long of 11.
22 of those were in the fourth quarter of the last 2 drives when it was. So that's why those are a little misleading even.
Right. I rewatched the first half, and I thought there was one run where he had an opportunity to bounce outside. I thought Wyatt Teller pinned his guy inside, and for whatever reason, Ford tried to cut it up inside and got tackled for no gain or a loss. I thought that was a poor decision, and there was room to run there. Other than that, I thought he was fine. I don't know if there's a ton of room to run. I mean, it's not like they tried to establish the run. I'm going to look up how many he had in the first half. There wasn't a ton of carries in the first half. So I get that he wasn't great, and I get that if people have concerns that he can – I mean, he ran 4 times in the first half. So I thought 3 out of those 4 were fine. I get that he's not Nick Chubb, and hopefully Nick Chubb comes back and is Nick Chubb. But I don't think he was anywhere close on my list of things that went wrong in losers for yesterday.
Yeah, there's a long list, so I'm with you. This is interesting as well. So this is tweeted out. Deshaun Watson, 2.6 air yards per completion, lowest mark in a game in his career. 22 dropbacks under duress, most he's faced in a game in his career. That just goes to show me the eye test kind of is, it's bared out by the numbers, because it sure looked like he was running. And sometimes, when you go back and you look at it, sometimes there was a pocket and he was running, but I think by that point in time, it's just like, oh, they're coming. I got to buy some time.
Yeah, and that's what he does. And, I think in his heyday, he was just better at that and, could make more of those off-schedule plays for whatever reason. And maybe that'll come back. But, yeah, running around too much. Didn't protect him, obviously, well enough. We talked about that. I actually lost my train of thought. What's the beginning? I don't even know what the beginning of that question was, Dave.
It was just, he just didn't look comfortable, I guess. The
short passes.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm glad the short passes. Yeah. I mean, in the first half, I don't think he had a completion over like 5 or 6 yards. And I think it's tough to play like that. I also think that you could see that coming in training camp. They ran so many quick flats and slants and quick outs. that you knew that was going to be kind of the backbone of this offense, and then you mix in some shot plays. And I think the point of the short passing game is to take pressure off the quarterback, help him not get hit all the time, help him make decisive choices, get the ball out of his hand. The problem is they were still throwing short, and it didn't feel decisive, and it didn't feel like he was making the fast, right decisions. And if you have that combination, that's a bad combination.
Well, and you add in all the penalties they had. We haven't even mentioned how many penalties they had. So they were 1st and 15, 2nd and 13, and again, you can't do that. And that was the disappointing thing. My thought was, this is an offense that plays to his strengths, and I didn't see that.
Yeah, and maybe I'm glad you brought up the 2nd and 15, 1st and 15, 2nd and 13 all day. It's hard to call plays like that. It's hard to play quarterback like that, especially when you're trailing. So maybe if it's 7-7 game, you can run it a little more. You can throw those quick outs and start to get a rhythm and start to, move the ball down the field, where they just weren't able to do that in the kind of construct of the game, the flow of that game. So, I think that could look a lot better if the Browns get off to a better start. But that's one of the questions I had about this quote-unquote new scheme was, is it going to be too many short passes? Is the defense just going to get too constricted and make it too congested for Watson to find guys?
Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Let's break. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram and BrownZone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. It's only one game, so I'm not going to push the panic button. But the difference is that Watson has not built up enough equity with good performances to not have some level of concern. All throughout week one, there were quarterbacks that struggled, great quarterbacks that struggled, but the difference is that they have built up equity. So you're not really too concerned about them. With that said, I'm not going to pass the panic button, and we just need to get ready for Jacksonville next week. Thanks. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, I've been a guy that I thought Deshaun Watson would play better. It's simple. The loss to the Cowboys, each game it puts more pressure, especially because you lost one at home. I mean, Cowboys are a good team, but that's the type of game, if you expect to be a playoff team, you got to win at home.
Yeah, for sure. But I do think that caller sounds reasonable. And Deshaun Watson has not built up any kind of collateral with this fan base, and that's completely understandable. So when he plays poorly, it kind of confirms a lot of people's fears or judgments about him as a player. So I think that's perfectly understandable. Just to play devil's advocate a little bit, the last time we saw him on the field, he was 14 for 14 in the second half, and the Browns came back and beat Baltimore. So it's not like we have to go that far back to find a game where he played well. It's been a while. And I think the default is Watson no longer has it. So anytime he plays poorly, that's where a lot of people go. And he certainly played really poorly against the Cowboys.
Well, one of our earlier callers brought this up. So this was as of the late slate of games on Sunday. The Browns ranked last in the NFL in the use of pre-snap motion, 24.3%. Pre-snap and also 4.3% at the snap. That's per True Media. So one of the reasons they brought Ken Dorsey in as an OC was to help incorporate motion into that concept, into their offense and those concepts. Now, the thing I would say is Mike Zimmer is, known for disguising and doing some things defensively, and that's one of the reasons you don't use motion is you got to worry about where you're going to be to block people. But again, I get the points. I get people saying that. I'm one of the ones that said they need to get more motion. They need to be four wides, and it didn't work for whatever reason. It didn't work.
Yeah, I don't know. And I know there's people that think motion is the end-all be-all, and there's a lot of great coaches that use a bunch of motion. And I know it's tricky for a defense. It adds to what the defense has to contend with. I'm not quite in that boat. I think you can have a lot of success not doing a ton of motion. But I would think that the fact that the Browns didn't speaks to they didn't have a lot of time where all their guys practice together. For whatever reason, they didn't play. Deshaun Watson didn't play in the preseason. They already had enough penalties as it was. What if they got guys moving around before the snap? It leads to a potential for more penalties. So I would think that would be something that would increase as the season went along. I would also say that puts a lot of responsibility on the quarterback. He sends guys in motion. He knows when to stop them. It's part of that's dependent on what he sees in the defense. And maybe there's not that trust factor yet with Watson and the coaching staff and doing a bunch of pre-snap motion.
They got to figure something out. And the penalties are the first thing. First, you got to eliminate them because, 1st and 10 is a whole lot easier when you're struggling to move the football than 1st and 15 or first and 20. All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
It seems like too many people put way too much focus on quarterbacks and amounts to having blinders on. Say, it's a quarterback league and letting that statement do their thinking for them. Too many people talk about quarterbacks like pitchers in baseball as if they play against each other when that is clearly not the case. So instead of narrowly focusing on what quarterbacks the Browns will defend against this year, Browns fans should please keep in mind what we have not been hearing from our opinion leaders, that the Browns had it easier last year simply because they got to play a fourth-place schedule last year. And if you disagree, just ask yourself, how many times have you heard the name Micah Parsons this week, and how many times have you heard the name Dak Prescott this week, preparing for the Week 1 game?
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, we talked about Mike Parsons quite a bit. We basically said he was their version of Myles Garrett, and you had to figure out a way to stop him, and they move him around, and Mike Zimmer used him more effectively. Fourth place schedule, we've talked about that a little bit. At the end of the day, quarterbacks get talked about because they have the ball in their hand every play on offense. Nobody has, even Mike Parsons. Okay, we're going to have these guys block him, but Deshaun Watson touches the ball on every play on offense.
Yeah, we talk about him all the time because that's thinking important. That's just how it is. That's the reality. And I get that it's not everything. It's not all about the quarterback. There's 21 other guys out there and 52 other guys on the roster. And it's not every win and loss and every play is not just dependent on the quarterback. I get that, and that's true. And you can win games with poor quarterback play. You can lose games with great quarterback play. But the quarterback is really important. He matters a ton. He matters more than anybody else by a lot. And that's why we focus so much about it. Plus, the Browns quarterback right now is a huge unknown. And I think the rest of the roster is on par with everybody else in the league. And the big question mark and the big doubt is a quarterback. And that's why there's so much time spent talking about Deshaun Watson.
So before I let you go, as you look forward, what do you need to see in Jacksonville even if Jacksonville's gonna be a tough place to go in and win. I mean, they're a pretty good football team. You go into Jacksonville. What do you need to do to feel better about the offense? What do you need to see?
Yeah, they need to protect Watson better. But even more important than that is I need to see some kind of positive strides from Watson. And that's a rhythm on offense. It's stringing completions. It's not throwing the ball 6 yards out of bounds when you try to throw the ball 30 yards downfield, which he did multiple times, and Orlovsky referred to that. It's not throwing behind David Njoku in the flat or bouncing the ball to Elijah Moore. He needs to throw it better, he needs to see it better, and he needs to make quicker decisions.
I'm with you. We need to see more of the offense that they're trying to put together with Watson. Scott Petrick, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Scott.
Thanks, David.
Scott Petrick, make sure you check him out. Brownzone.com on the internet. He is the Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby tins. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I saw that Deshaun Watson says that he's an elite quarterback in the league. And after today's performance, how is he an elite quarterback? Because he's been playing like this for 2 years. And it's just like, we're paying him all this money. We gave up so many draft picks to get him. And what has he done in the last 2 years to prove that he's an elite quarterback and that he can actually win us games, let alone Super Bowls? Because he claims he's going to bring us one. He claims that he's an elite quarterback. I just really want Jimmy Haslam, Andrew Berry to prove, and for everyone to prove in that organization that he's the right guy for the job. Because right now, I don't know. And as a Browns fan, I am really disappointed in this team. And I know I'm not the only one that feels this way.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, the fan base is angry. I mean, Watson, remember, who'd he beat? The game against the Ravens was elite. Having said that, he's got to be better. We need better.
Oh, there's no way around it. And I think that's probably what everybody's biggest takeaway was from yesterday. You know, the injury notwithstanding, because look, I mean, it didn't look like it was affecting him throwing the ball. There was definitely velocity on the ball yesterday. It didn't, hurt him as far as, how he was physically throwing it. The accuracy certainly wasn't there. But I think that's the thing that probably has most people up in arms is that the last time he saw Deshaun Watson quarterback this team, he played really well. Then you factor into the way last season ended, then maybe you kind of just had a thought that the offense was just good in general. So it didn't maybe necessarily, matter who the quarterback was. For me, when, word came out at about 2:55 yesterday when Jack Conklin wasn't playing, it definitely gave me some big pause and hesitation. I think the offensive line did good enough job to keep it close, but you're fooling yourself and you're kidding yourself. And look, you guys know me. I've been one that's tried to, defend this play for as long as I possibly could. But, yesterday's effort certainly, leaves you walking away with a lot more questions than you have any answers.
Yeah, I'm with you. You and I have both defended Watson, and we need to see it. Week 1 questions and takeaways from ESPN.com. Where do the Browns go from here after an uninspiring debut for their offense? Watson never got into a rhythm. Offensive line missing Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin allowed 5 sacks and 21 pressures. 5 sacks, 21 pressures. Those are important. Describe the game in 2 words for the Browns. Same article. They go offensive eyesore. Browns ended the first half with 54 yards of total offense and 1 first down. Eye-popping stat, Watson 2 of 11 on passes that traveled 10-plus air yards. With the arrival of Jerry Jeudy and Ken Dorsey, Browns were hoping for a more dynamic passing game. Jeff, he just didn't. I mean, he didn't look comfortable, and he didn't look like he had a grasp of the offense. And that's not a good thing. That's the most concerning thing for me, because this is an offense that I believe was going to try to play to his strengths, and for him to come out and look like he did, I'm concerned at this point.
Oh, there's no question to not have, high concerns right now. I think some of the things that really kind of bothered me was we knew it was going to be a rookie corner. We knew Trayvon Diggs hadn't played in over a year after an ACL injury. My first thought process was, aren't you going to, throw some deep? And, for those who want to blame the offensive line, he certainly had plenty of time. He averaged over 4 seconds with the ball in his hands. So there was time to try to draw things up here, and you try to attack this team vertically to see what they were capable of. It just seemed like everything, again, it's the same thing. It's, the 10 yards or less in between the hashes. And, there were times where guys were open and he gunned at 100 miles an hour, which didn't do anybody any help. The interception where Micah Parsons tipped it, you really want to question why on earth in any way whatsoever is Micah Parsons coming in clean and untouched. If you're going to chip him, you better chip him and chip him well. But 2 interceptions, 5 sacks, 21 pressures. You came away from yesterday and you feel like it's further away than it's probably ever been. And I think that's the thing that's probably deflating for most everybody, myself included. You just kind of have your thoughts of, if that was that, and, we understand, his summer was limited and all of that. And they did say during the game yesterday, which we talked about a lot, that it was all about getting back for September 8th. But, it just was not good enough. And the thing is if this is a team with legit expectations, like winning their division expectations, hosting playoff games expectations, then what you saw yesterday just it's not enough. And it honestly, you wonder, even with, Jack Conklin coming back and whoever may come back, I'm not sure that's going to make up that amount of tremendous difference, from what the effort was that you saw yesterday.
All right, this is from ESPN.com, judging Week 1 overreactions. Jameis Winston will be the Browns' starting quarterback by Halloween. Verdict, overreaction. It looked bad, but the Browns are heavily invested in Watson, need him to play well in order to feel confident about their short and long-term future. He will get a longer leash, a long leash as a starter. Jedrick Wills will return from injury at some point. The Browns aren't going to be going against Parsons every week. Browns are deep, talented, well-coached. It's possible they just played their worst game of the season. Let's hope so. The thing is, you lose the opener at home when you have these expectations. And I don't think it would take quite a bit. I don't think Deshaun Watson's getting benched. They got to get an answer on this. But man, that they missed an opportunity there, especially with the Bengals losing and the Ravens losing. They missed a golden opportunity to set themselves up. And now you're almost playing from, it's just like a penalty, on first down. You're playing from behind the sticks with the season now.
And we've seen how well he's responded to that to this point, Dave. It's not a good thing. I'll be honest with you. From what I saw yesterday, I would say Halloween. There's no way. I mean, if you can't punt this entire season. The Cleveland Browns have a lot of money invested into this season. They have no intention of punting on this season. So the question you have to ask yourself, if you are Andrew Berry, if you are Kevin Stefanski, and anybody in that building, I'm sure somehow, some way you got to talk to ownership about it, is do you want to win, or do you want to play the guy who's making the most money? Because, look, we don't know, obviously, what Jameis can give us. But there is a firm question to be asked. How could it possibly be any worse? That is a firm question to be asked. And, as banged up as he was, and I will give Deshaun credit because, Stefanski did want to pull him. And, I know Deshaun knows how he's viewed and knows what's said about him. If they had pulled him and he agreed to it, things would have been 10 times worse than they even are right now. But you cannot, because it's crucial to win these games now, because the latter part of the season is when you play Pittsburgh twice, you play Cincinnati twice, you play Baltimore twice, you play Kansas City, you have Miami on the schedule. You can't expect to go running the gauntlet late in the season. You need to, ideally, you were shooting for 4-2 here out of the first 6 weeks. So, it's not, he's probably going to start Sunday, but you really, really have to start thinking about, how short the leash is.
That is a thought. And with that, we're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, be right back.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s, $10 each. 10 times multipliers, 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. So ESPN's Get Up this morning. Rex Ryan, Dan Orlovsky on Deshaun Watson and the Browns offensive system.
Last time we saw Deshaun Watson play in that system that we saw all those other guys have success in, he completed 13 passes in a row against Baltimore, leading his team to a victory with a dang bad shoulder. So to me, they decided, hey, look, we're going to go all in on Ken Dorsey offensive system. That did not look like a Kevin Stefanski
at all
system.
But here's my thing, Rex. Even in moments when they do run it, because there were a couple moments where they would get into 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends, and they go play action, it still doesn't work. The play fakes aren't succinct. He's thrown into double coverage down the field. That's where I sit there and I go crisis, because there are moments when they try to run it and it's not executed well. Then there's moments when they try to do this spread out, catch and throw, whatever. No one in their offense is built to run that. You think Wyatt Teller, who's the best right guard in football, or certainly one of them, wants to just sit there and go pass protect the whole game? But they're handcuffing everybody else. And then also, I'm not naive to reality of, like, the offensive line didn't play well yesterday, okay? Like, Deshaun certainly was under duress. I do think it was attached to the scheme. But there's no plus plays either. There's no where you go, oh, there's that magic from Houston. And it feels like everyone's still holding on to that.
You know, Jeff, when I watched that, the thing that I was expecting more open space. That there wasn't a lot of open space. How is it that every other offensive scheme you can see, hey, there's grass, there's guys running, everything's combined and clustered in together?
Well, to be fair, and I think the biggest issue that we're having is I think Deshaun, by the time the ball is snapped, he's predetermined where he's going with the ball, which is obviously just something you cannot do at this league. And this was the point of the Browns doing what they've been doing the last few years in bringing in Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy and, of course, Elijah Moore, and having all these wide receivers, and unfortunately David Njoku, who's going to miss a little time, was that there was no way a defense is going to cover everybody on every given play. And, there were guys open yesterday. There were. And some of it, I don't know if he was starting to feel ghost pressure because he had been pressured so much, which would be understandable. It would be. But there's just something about where he is just not getting the ball, and gripping and ripping into open space anymore. I think the nicest pass he probably threw yesterday was probably the first ball he threw, which was, a short, quick out to Amari Cooper. A lot of people were gasping for air because they thought it was going to be picked, but, we threw it high and out, and Amari made the catch, got the first down, which led to their first points, the field goal. I don't know, and look, I think we're well beyond, is he ever going to be the player he was in Houston? And, my expectations certainly, have been tempered and lowered from that for a while. All I asked for was a high completion percentage and low interceptions, because you know what? Then the statistical output would probably be pretty decent, and it wouldn't be, that bad. But you just can't get that right now. And there's just way too many inconsistencies. You cannot be a starting quarterback in the NFL, and I don't care how much money you're making and have a completion percentage in the 50s. It was just, it was a really, really rough day. And look, credit to Dallas, and credit to Mike Zimmer. And I don't know how much of a Kevin Stefanski offense we saw yesterday with a Ken Dorsey mix in it or whatever. But honestly, it should have been all Ken Dorsey yesterday because, Zimmer certainly has, a relationship with Kevin Stefanski. But everything we saw yesterday, it just seemed like Dallas was, 2 to 3 steps ahead at the entire time. And we're talking about Dallas, who had a bunch of guys who didn't play this summer either. So you can't even take that into an account. There's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be done because, this team and the effort they put out yesterday and just the way it all looked, it looks like they were a long, long way, from this team that we thought was going to win the AFC North.
So when you look at it, what concerns you the most about the Browns, and what do you need to see in Jacksonville so that you're not as concerned about the Browns as we obviously are now?
But look, we're going to say the same things. Jacksonville doesn't have great corners. Oh, their best corner tweaked their hamstring yesterday. Well, that's kind of the same things we said going into this game yesterday, Dave. And, look, you expect the defense is going to play better. Not everybody's offense is the Dallas Cowboys, certainly. The punt return, what are you going to do? Baracquez can flip the field for you at any given time. When you have a guy who averages well over 50 yards a punt, every now and then you're going to get got. And for the first time Baracquez has been with the Browns, yesterday was the first time he got as far as that. But, you're going to have to try to find some semblance of running game. And everybody, they got to stick to running the ball. Why? What have we seen from this system? What have we seen from the offensive line yesterday, the way it was constructed, that gave us any thought process that they were going to be able to run the ball? Dallas does have Tank Lawrence. They got Micah Parsons. Eric Kendricks is obviously a guy who is really, really in lockstep with Zimmer. And it just, look, but you're going to have to start with the basics. You're going to have to play really good defense. You're going to have to find a way to get some semblance of a running game. I think the defense overall played pretty well. You held an NFL team to only 263 yards. That's not too bad. Normally you're going to win most of those games, You just, it's really got to come from the offense. And, losing Njoku certainly isn't going to help. You've got to find a way to get these receivers involved. You're going to, most likely we're going to be spreading it out, I guess, because right now this team only has one tight end on a roster, technically. You feel really, really taken back from where, the expectation was going into that game yesterday, and, the flyover and Bernie and everything they had going on. And then the effort that this team gave, and it just seemed like, the season is not over. You have 16 games left, but, anybody that was in that building, any Browns fan anywhere, I understand and I respect your frustration, because I think you thought you were getting a much better product. And even still, that's kind of what we were told over the summer, even though there wasn't a lot going on. We kind of, everybody, it looks good. And there were a few that said, well, I haven't really seen much of nothing. Maybe the few who maybe seemed like they were, speaking the truth, maybe that's where everybody kind of should put their ears.
So when you look at the Browns defense, there are two things that concern me. They were not able to take advantage of 2 rookies on that offensive line. And that really surprised me.
But to Dak Prescott's credit, Dak Prescott threw for 160 yards yesterday. This is a guy that led the league in the touchdown passes last year, normally throws for over 4,000 yards every year. So what does that tell me? That Dak Prescott said, I'm going to help out my rookie offensive lineman, and I'm going to get the ball out of my hands as quickly as possible. Even the touchdown to Cooks, was a Dak Prescott. It wasn't a a deep throw, but it was off his back foot to an open space where only his guy was going to get it. Dak Prescott played within himself yesterday. He hit the underneath routes because he knew that was probably the thing he was going to have the best chance of success with. They mixed that. They ran the ball okay, not great, but they did what they needed to do to win. On the other side, they just didn't do that. They didn't make simple execution. They got themselves way behind the sticks way too many times. I think they had, like it was like 7 or 8 4th and 8s or longer. I mean, 3rd and 8s or longer. I mean, you just cannot compete like that. Was the fact that maybe they, throttled down this summer and didn't do as much as they should. And I'm not even talking about the preseason games, but maybe there needed to be a lot more done. And I understand guys were in and guys were out, and it's a fact of life or whatever. But it seemed like training camp came and went, and we were all excited. And you had 2 weeks, and okay, let's go tee it up. But it seemed like was there even a training camp? Because that looked like basically baby deer taking their first steps yesterday, the offensive side of the ball.
Jeff Lloyd, is always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, guys. And, hey, tee it up again in 6 days.
Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Locked On Browns podcast, always really good and insightful Browns coverage. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.